And not only did it give me an anxiety attack in fourth grade, but it gave my fellow fourth graders an anxiety attack. And that book was Hatchet by Gary Paulsen. This story is about our main character, 13-year-old Brian, whose parents have recently been through a divorce. So he's flying to his dad from, I believe, British Columbia to another part of Canada. I know it takes place in the Canadian wilderness, but I don't know exactly where. It is only him and the pilot in the plane, and the pilot has a heart attack and dies. And then 13-year-old Brian has to fly. He tries to find where he was going, but he couldn't find it, and he was like, okay, I don't know where I'm going. He took us off route a little bit when he was like jerking and stuff, and he doesn't know how to fly a plane. He's 13 freaking years old. He's tried to do the emergency contact, whatever. It doesn't work. He has to land it. He has to crash land it. And thankfully, he sees a lake, and he's like, okay, if I can get on the lake, that's better than just like crashing on hard land. And yes, he lands the plane. It's harrowing. Oh my gosh, this first whole section of the book is just terrifying, but it's like the first few pages, this all happens. He almost drowns when the plane crashes into the lake, but he gets out, and then he crawls out, and he's just exhausted. He falls asleep, obviously, and then he wakes up. He crawls a little further to like the tree line, and then as the sun is coming up, he starts getting attacked and like eaten alive by all these flies and all these mosquitoes and stuff, and it's like terrifying. He's like covering his head, but then they're getting his back. They're like getting him everywhere. It's just, this kind of story is definitely not for me. And yeah, reading it now, I'm like, why would a fourth grade teacher read this to her fourth grade class? Because yeah, when he's getting attacked by all the bugs and stuff, that's where we stopped reading it, because of how terrifying it is. Literally, yeah, this time around when I was reading it, I thought he was gonna die. I was like, does he die because he gets eaten alive by these bugs? But no, they go away. That pretty much is a summary of how the book starts. His pilot has a heart attack and dies. He gets in a plane crash, and he has to survive. And then it's the rest of the story. So yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled, spoiler warning, I'm going to be talking about the story in its entirety. So if you don't want to know what happens, I suggest you stop watching here. So I listened to the audiobook version of it, and I'm going to buy it because I'm like, I give it 4 stars. Like, it's actually a pretty good book. The writing is very good. I was listening to the audiobook, and not only is it already like a tense experience to read, but there would be like all this music and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why are you doing this to me? Like, it's bad enough, and then the music starts popping off, and I start freaking out near the beginning, before everything starts going bad. And then yeah, even once things are bad, Brian is kind of wrestling with his parents recently having been divorced. I think I said that earlier. Yes, I did. It's like this huge thing. In the very beginning, he calls divorce an ugly breaking word, and I'm like, oh, that's very poetic. These are the notes I took while I was listening to the audiobook, and it's just a few things here and there. And I do believe that the plane crash is like a metaphor for like what divorce is like when kids' parents get divorced. I think that's one big metaphor, but it's not really touched on the rest of the story. It doesn't like go in depth. It's just like he has to survive in the wilderness, and it goes from there. Once we get past him getting through the shock of being through a plane crash and coming to the realization that he has to survive, it generally really does turn into a really beautiful nature story, and also a story about like perseverance and finding everything you need within yourself. Brian has this really good teacher that he remembers like the lessons that he taught him, and his teacher told him, you are your most valuable asset. And Brian really uses that, and he really thrives. He does very well despite a lot of the troubles he runs into. He's starving, and he's looking for food, and he sees these birds eating these berries, and he starts to just eat the berries, obviously because he's starving. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, How does he know he can freaking eat those berries? And then, yeah, he wakes up later vomiting with diarrhea, and it's like, I freaking knew it. And then he'll get a win, and then something bad will happen. He'll get a win, and something bad will happen. Just a few of the things that he had to go through. He runs into a bear. He finds raspberries, thank God. But as he's like getting them, he looks, and there's a freaking bear, and her cubs are right there. And he was like, oh my gosh, if I went a few more feet, I would have been in between them, and that would have been really bad. But the bear leaves peacefully. Thankfully, he gets attacked by a moose, and the moose like breaks his ribs. He gets pricked by a porcupine in his sleep, and he starts crying, and I'm like, oh no. Like, I feel so bad for this kid throughout the whole book. He gets sprayed by a skunk. And there's another part where he's woken up out of his sleep because he hears something like slip into the water. And I was like, I swear, if that's an alligator, oh my goodness, like, is he gonna have to fight an alligator or something? It was just a turtle that was laying eggs, but then he has to eat the eggs. So then I got sad. I was like, oh, why is he eating the turtle eggs? But he needs to survive, so it's okay. How Brian gets rescued is he decides that he's going to dive to the bottom of the lake to the plane so he can get the survival kit. Time passes. Like, there's a part where he hears a plane overhead. He runs to light a fire because he's in the wilderness. So if they're looking for him, and especially if he went off course, they would have a really hard time finding him, especially with the plane being underwater. If they can't find it, how are they gonna find him? There's this part where he hears the plane and he goes running to light a fire so they know where he is, but by the time he gets there, the plane is far gone. He can just hear it getting further and further, and I'm like, no, he didn't get rescued. And I got scared he wasn't gonna get rescued, but he dives to the bottom of the lake to get the survival kit out of the plane, and it, of course, has to be made a little bit more difficult because it's called Hatchet because his mom gave him a gift of a hatchet, and he uses that to survive. And he drops it when he's underwater trying to get into the plane. So he has to go even lower to get it and then go up and then go back down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can anything be easier for this kid? He gets the survival kit, and obviously in the survival kit there's food, but then there's also an emergency intercom. And he turns it on and he has no idea how it works. So he's just like, hopefully it works. And he's starting to make his food and stuff. And then a plane just goes boom and lands on the water, and he is rescued. And he was in the wilderness for 45 days alone, a 13-year-old, and he lost 17% of his body weight. I'm like, that poor kid. I'm just happy he got out of it. And he seemed like, from like the epilogue or whatever, he seems like he was a super scarred by it. He just liked nature. When I finished it and I was logging it, I saw that it's a saga. I was like, oh my gosh, what? I don't like survival books, but despite that, I really did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars. I was interested in potentially reading the other ones, but then I read the synopsis of all of them, and it's like, oh, you know, he goes with this journalist who wants to like watch him do his wilderness things, and he gets like struck by lightning or something, so Brian has to keep him alive the whole time. And like, yeah, they're on like a river or something, and I'm like, can this kid just go on like a fun like little wilderness retreat? Like, why does it have to be like life and death? Like, can the stakes lower a bit? But it seems like, yeah, with the next few books they just get higher and higher and higher. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna read that. I was stressed out enough reading this one, and because I know what happens and how it happens, rereading it won't be that bad. I'm not putting myself through an even more stressful experience, even though I'm interested. But yeah, if you've read those and you want to tell me about them, please do. I would love to know what happens with them, what people think of them. Yeah, if you've read Hatchet, what did you think of it? I would say if you like survival and nature stories, you would love this book. If you don't mind survival and you really like nature, you would also like this. But if you get stressed out easy, don't read this book. Do not read it. Yeah, the only reason I read it is because I remembered my 4th grade teacher reading this to our 4th grade class. And if we were in like middle school, I think it would have been fine. But 4th grade is way too young to read this book. I also just wanted to know what happened because in my head, I thought he died. I thought everybody died. But I'm like, wait, no. Like, she was reading that to kids, so I don't think she would have read a story where the main character died. But yeah, the pilot having a heart attack, that was horrific in my memory. And yeah, it's a scary experience in the book, but yeah. This book is really good. I'm really glad I pushed myself to read it too, because I'm trying to widen the range of books I read and things, and I'm very glad. I wouldn't say it's a new favorite, but definitely a good book, and I'm excited to add it to my library. Have you read Hatchet? If you have, what did you think? What did you rate it? Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of me, you can check out my music channel or original music, all under the name of Shy Fighter. Like, if you want to like, subscribe if you want to subscribe. I don't know, do whatever you would like to do, and I will see you when I see you. Farewell.